Okay, so I received a question from one of our members, and so I've come on to kind of explain this in case anyone else wants to know the answer to these questions about the Great Suffering and the Great Awakening. So I feel like I've covered a lot of this in quite a lot of detail in the YouTube videos, but as it's still causing some confusion, it's probably worth just doing the summary here on this particular area. So the question was kind of just not really understanding about the suffering and the not suffering, and the great suffering and the great awakening. So I'm just going to do a recap. So this is basically a bit of a recap for to help with understanding. So the great suffering leading to the great awakening, as far as we know it, started with a choice point. And that choice point year was, as we all know, was previous year, September to September. And it really stems from the internal question, surely there's more to life than this. Surely there's a better way than this. And usually that was coming out of an element of suffering, discomfort, and that usually is what brings up a question. Surely there's a better way than this. Surely there's more to life than this, because that's what suffering does. Right? It makes us question things. So everyone was given a choice point. Everyone, all of humanity was given this choice point. And we were asked, do we want life to carry on the way it is, or do we believe there's something better? Do we believe there is a better way? And it played out in our personal lives. So you would have asked this of yourself personally, and then your personal answer was also your bigger answer as well. So usually if you say, surely there's something better in life than this, you would want to create a change, right? So life as it was the suffering, and the awakening is there's something better. I'm going to make a change to create that. So that was how it was manifesting in the personal. Originally, when this first came to me and I was told about the great suffering, I thought it would be quite big events in everybody's lives, and it may have been a big event or it may have been a small event. And it really just, and I've done a video on this, it just depends on where you are and in your own evolution and what you needed and how it would manifest. So we don't really have any control on how you got your choice point, but we all made a choice. Now, based on that choice, we are now in a 2-year transition period where the choices that we made in the choice point year are playing out in our realities. So when I refer to the great suffering, and we can see there's a lot of suffering in this world, it was really the choice, and do we carry on with the same mindset? Do we carry on with the same way? Because that's what suffering is. It's the way we are living now. That's what it is, right? It's with the mindsets. It's with the things that we have that have led us to the point of environmental collapse. It has led us to war. It has led us to all of these things, which is the mind, and it is suffering, and all suffering comes from the mind. And therefore, we have chosen the same. We have chosen to not step out of the suffering that the mind has created through concepts, ideologies, individuality, all of these things that lead to separation, judgment. These all lead to suffering. And so if we didn't decide on a change, we decided we want things as they are, or we accepted things as they are. We didn't see a better way. We don't imagine there's a better way. We aren't looking for more love. We aren't looking for more unity. We aren't looking for more non-judgment. We aren't looking to protect all of life, not just some of life, just the life that we judge is the same as us. Then we chose suffering. And if that is the case, you can see there is suffering everywhere, right? This is not a judgment to say the people who are suffering have brought it on themselves, right? So nobody start with me on that, because that's not what I'm saying. But there is suffering still in the world, which is the mindset that created suffering is continuing in that same mindset that is still perpetuating suffering. Those who chose awakening were the ones who were saying, surely there's more to life than this. I think there's a better way. I think that actually I would rather live in a world with greater unity. I would like to live in a world with less separation. I would like to live in a world where there's a greater respect for all living creatures. I believe that there is a world that is possible where we remove the judgment, we extend our compassion, and all of these lovely characteristics that would involve a very different world, very different systems created with very different ideologies behind it. Not even ideologies, because those are of the mind, but we would be creating a different world and a different system that was more inclusive and less about separation, more about unity, more about cooperation, more about love, less about mind, etc., etc. So that's what the awakening side of things is about. And so one of the questions that one of the members mentioned is, well, if I chose awakening, is there no suffering? It's not a magic wand. You've got to create that non-suffering yourself as well, right? So the non-suffering means that you just know and are working towards a life of non-suffering. So I put the invincibility principle of non-suffering to the top of the list for January for us to look at non-suffering and cultivating a life of non-suffering, in case that people have chosen awakening but they're still a bit confused as to how to create that life in terms of non-suffering. So it doesn't mean that you won't have challenges in life, because we're still experiencing life, but we're working towards creating and contributing towards the things like love, compassion, recognizing ourselves as light beings, recognizing ourselves as having greater potential and power than we've ever realized, and not contributing to the suffering. And we don't contribute to the suffering by buying into the stories, picking sides, contributing negatively with our emotions. We are trying to contribute. If we chose awakening, we are contributing to the love and the light. We are contributing towards compassion. We are contributing towards new ideas that are heart-based, that are led by the heart, led by the soul, into new ways of doing things. So that's where we're contributing. We don't want to contribute to the suffering. We'll still see it. It'll be around us, but we don't want to contribute. We want to be part of the awakening. And those of us who have already chosen it, that's wonderful. We've already chosen it. So then we have, if the logic is that we have the ability then to sort of lead from the front through our actions, through our heart-based led ideas, and to be learning to embody those attributes, embodying the heart-based, soul-based, intuitive-based, higher understanding, higher knowing ways of being. And so we're practicing that, and we're transitioning into that. That's where the work is. And we're trying not to contribute to the suffering. Now, those who chose suffering, doesn't mean that's a dead end, but the suffering means that the reason you chose it is you didn't see a reason to change it. Or you didn't realize you had that choice that was given to you. A lot of people are unconscious and they're not really even aware of that choice that they chose suffering. So what happens to those people? Well, suffering is then the gift that is given to them, that is the catalyst for them to awaken. So if you're already on the awakened path, you probably had your own personal catalyst already, right? So I had illness, other people have different things. A lot of people have illness, or they have something that acts as a catalyst for us to awaken and say, surely there's more to life than this. And suffering tends to be the catalyst for humans, because, and for those in the membership and who've on the Facebook group, you'll have seen I posted this Charles Eisenstein thing about where he's talking about suffering, and you're having to reach rock bottom in order to change. And I've talked about this for many years, that you can change without suffering. It's perfectly possible for humans to change without suffering, but we tend not to, because we haven't got the impetus, we haven't got the desire. It's not become so urgent for us. And everyone's level of urgency is very different. Everyone's rock bottom is different, which is why, this is what Charles Eisenstein was saying, everyone's rock bottom is different. So if you've had your rock bottom, if you've had your catalyst for change, that's wonderful. You've most probably already chosen awakening because you've had it personally. But for many people, they haven't actually hit that catalytic suffering level yet. And that's why they're still in the great suffering. They're in the great suffering as a gift, not as a punishment, so that the catalyst for suffering that they have to reach, so that they can then say, surely there's a better way than this, that leads them to the great awakening. So some of us have already started and we're up front. We're trying to be up front. We're trying our best. We're working to a more higher consciousness. Some people call it ascension. Some people call it 3D to 4D to 5D to 6D dimensions. We're going to a higher consciousness level. Some are calling it, we're having a consciousness leap, but these are all true. These are all just words for the same thing. We're all trying to, those who have chosen awakening are now working on ourselves to develop ourselves so that we can reach this higher level of consciousness where some of these solutions really exist. And those who are in the great suffering, yes, they have great suffering, but it's not a punishment. It is to lead them to the great awakening. So it acts as a catalyst. Until we get to that, until people reach that catalytic point, people don't tend to change. People will tend to carry on as they are. And that is just, it is not my fault. I'm just commentating on what I've been shown. And I'm trying to just help everyone understand it a little bit better. This is just what's happening at the moment. So it doesn't mean that just because you've chosen awakening, there won't be things in your life that are difficult. Of course, there's going to be things in your life that's difficult. But by now, we have started to learn on this path of awakening ourselves. And if you've been on it a while, you will know there are ways to deal with difficulty, challenges, and pain, including physical pain, that doesn't involve the suffering of the mind. So when we say suffering, what we're really talking about, especially in spiritual terms, is the mind that has created situations and is leading to pain and suffering, but it's been created by the mind. Once we recognize that all suffering is created by the mind, we can then work with not suffering despite the circumstances. And now some people argue, well, that's a very privileged way to look at the world. There's lots of suffering, and you're saying, no, it's just of the mind, and it's not an avoidance technique, right? It's not there's suffering, you can just think your way through it. It's not about that. It's a different consciousness that we're asking people to reach for. That means that we are moving the location of where we have created the world from is from the mind, and the mind is the creator of suffering. And we have created systems, we have created ideologies, we have created concepts that lead to suffering and great pain. And we're asking ourselves now as humanity to move the location of how we organize ourselves, how we create systems, how we live our lives from the mind, which creates suffering, to the heart. And so it's a movement away from the thing that creates the suffering. And when something happens that we have not chosen, that we don't like, that is not particularly comfortable, might be very uncomfortable, we know that the mind makes the suffering worse. And so we move away from the mind yet again in order to be able to cope with, work through, find solutions for what has already been created and is showing up in our reality. So it's a way of moving through, resolving within ourselves, and not perpetuating it again. And so it is a really important life skill to understand where suffering comes from and how to work through it so that we don't perpetuate it, and instead we can move forward. Instead of perpetuating it by keeping the same cycle of mind, thoughts, ideas, concepts and identities going, we move away from that and we go to the heart for our solutions. We go to heart for the comfort. We go to heart for the strength. We go to heart for all our answers. And so we're moving, really truly moving our central processing unit from mind to heart. And the heart has been given a terrible rap through the years by the mind. The mind says, the heart's got nothing to offer. It's flimsy, it's breakable, it's soft, it's weak. And it has dismissed so many things in the name of the concepts that it has created, such as money and wealth and whatever, that really doesn't bring the things that it says it brings. So it creates all this suffering. It brings lack of safety. It brings fear. And the heart brings the opposite. And we have ignored it for too long. And that is what is part of the Great Awakening, is the awakening to not perpetuating the things that create suffering and moving to a place where we can resolve these things once and for all. And finally, when we talk about peace, we mean it. When we talk about love, we mean it. When we talk about there's a better way to live, we can actually see those better ways. So that's it, really. Hopefully that clears things up. Hopefully. And yeah, I know I've talked very fast, but normally everyone complains that my videos are too long. So I hope I've covered everything, and I hope it's much clearer for anyone who was wondering about it. Yeah, hope that helps.